All right. Hello. I'm Lindsey Moppert here with Vic Carucci today. Obviously, day after the draft, we've seen all of the moves that they've made and also across the NFL. And now it's time to really sit here and kind of analyze what does this mean for the future? What are your thoughts on where the draft went, where it could have gone? So, Vic, I'm going to start you off here. As the draft went on, I know it was a little difficult when you're at 27 to really understand who's going to be taken off the board by that point, and who obviously the topic kept coming up, who's going to be the best player available at that point. So I'm just curious for you, where did you think once it got to that 20th pick, which Brandon Beane had talked about, that might be the point. The wide receivers, there was 4 taken right after 20, right after the first one was taken, 4 right in a row were taken. So where did you think once that started to happen that they were going to go with this first pick?
I found it interesting that Brandon Beane said the priority going into this draft for the Bills was to go after offensive playmakers. Obviously, they did just that, but in my view, the focus should have been on defense. I still think that's the side of the ball where this team has had the biggest problem getting over that hump in the postseason. Now, they also did something that surprised me by going after a tight end. And even though it sounds like an interesting role, it'll be intriguing to see how Dalton Kincaid becomes this bigger slot guy that they're talking about and attacking the middle of the field better. I don't know how much that truly solves. Maybe it'll make the offense more dynamic, but the offense is not a problem. The defense is a problem. And if I were going to be aggressive in the first round, it would have been to go after some sort of defensive talent. If it's not there, then maybe go down, add picks, and try to construct that way.
Right. So you kind of just touched on it there, but obviously, so the Bills go tight end, first round pick, Dalton Kincaid. I mean, what was your initial take on that? And as time has kind of passed by, has that changed at all?
I believe Dalton Kincaid is a talented player. He's a really good athlete. I think he's going to be a really good pass catching tight end, but they've got Dawson Knox on the roster. So in terms of fit and amount of playing time and all the things that also go along when a player joins your team, I'm not sure how that gets sorted out. I guess that's going to be Ken Dorsey's problem, and maybe he'll consider it a good problem, but I still think you're going to be challenged figuring out a way to make use of 2 tight ends on a regular enough basis. This is not Travis Kelce, even though he seems to have some of those talents. But if you're going to have Travis Kelce on your team, it really should take the form of a Dawson Knox, who you paid a lot of money to last September on a contract extension, who is on your team through 2026. Travis Kelce is a big factor for the Chiefs, the biggest factor they have, because Tyreek Hill is no longer there. The Bills still have Stephon Diggs. They still have Gabe Davis. They have outside targets, and as an offense, they function well with Josh Allen finding those guys for big plays.
Now, last night when Brandon Beane spoke with the media, he said, he wasn't lying when he said he wasn't necessarily targeting one side or the other, but he also said that, with a few of these different offensive picks that they've made, it's giving Josh Allen a few different weapons, so that this is your thing that you always say, so that he doesn't have to feel like he's Superman. Now, do you think as you just said there, they still have Stephon Diggs, they still have Gabe Davis. Do you think that was intentional, or do you actually think, it was just at that point who was the best player on the board at that point?
Every team establishes its own value of players. I respect that Brandon Beane stuck to what the Bills felt were the highest graded players in their view. And it turned out that it was offensive guys mainly in terms of the top 2 picks of the draft that they made. Fine. But when you think about a team that is well put together to be a contender, that's still in that contender's window, I think then you start to address areas that put you over the top. Is offense really the solution to that? Apparently the Bills think so, and that's their view. But to me, it's still on the defensive side. Now, the counter argument is, well, they've thrown assets to the defensive side the last few years, and has it really paid off? And in the postseason, the answer is no. But I'm not sure that's a good enough reason to back off of doing that.
And obviously, as you were saying there about how they were lacking some of those defensive needs that they've talked about, that was another topic last night that Brandon Beane had touched on, saying, they're definitely, he's always looking for some veteran guys or someone to maybe come fill that void, and it just necessarily didn't play out for them. What's your take on that? And if you actually think that, they will go ahead and add some veteran pieces as the year goes on?
Given the Bills' salary cap challenges, I think any additional moves they make from a free agent standpoint are going to have to be pretty modest. They're going to have to be the kind that you can fit comfortably under the cap, and probably the short-term deals, which the Bills like to do. So I wouldn't rule that out. I think they'll be able to figure that out and do that. But in terms of how they had to approach this offseason, this draft always loomed as being more important than I think any that Brandon Beane has overseen, because of the salary cap issues created by having a franchise quarterback, having a top-level receiver, having the deals that they did with Dawson Knox, and of course what they did with Von Miller. I mean, they've spent big money on big talent to win a Super Bowl. That means that you have to construct the rest of your roster around more affordable rookie contracts, and those are the players that are at the core. Anything you do from a veteran standpoint from here on out, to me, is still in the backfill category.
Okay, so now looking a little bit past that first round pick, obviously they had 6 total picks yesterday. Out of the rest of the 5 guys that they selected, who do you feel like is going to have the biggest impact on this team, and why?
I think picking up Osiris Torrance was a home run all the way. Great pick for the Buffalo Bills. And if they did nothing else in the course of 2 nights and a day, that was the move that could make this draft be viewed as a win, because you have a guy with great size, with great pass protection ability, with power, with aggressiveness. I mean, the things that you want from any offensive lineman, but especially a guard, he brings that to the table. And I think he'll upgrade the offensive line as a whole just with his presence. 1 year at Florida, yes, after 3 at Louisiana, but it was an outstanding season at an SEC school, as close to NFL competition as a collegiate player can get. And he was tremendous. He has the potential to be a fixture for many years to come on the Bills' offensive line.
Okay, and last thing here, obviously everyone loves to do this after a draft. On a grading scale, A, B, C, D, I guess you could give them an F. What would you grade the Bills draft picks this year? Yeah,
I'm somewhere around maybe a C+ to a B-. And the only reason I grade it down from, say, an A is because of not the talent that Dalton Kincaid would bring, because there's talent there. It's just, did they do the right thing in getting a tight end in the first round? When I had to look at all the things that they needed to address, was that really the priority? Yes, they did so well with the second round pick. Everything else after that, maybe they contribute as special teams players, who knows? But really, it's those 2 picks, those first 2 picks, that's the focus. And by the way, they did not address, for instance, middle linebacker, which I thought was the most crying need. And could they have been more aggressive in doing that? But overall, I thought it was a solid draft. Not a great one in terms of what we see immediately, but it has got to be a draft that is impactful for a team that is seeing that playoff window, or that contenders window, I should say, starting to get a little narrower.
Right. And again, you have to, it's hard to give it a grade right now, because you also have to see if these guys really play out to be the players that they're supposed to be or that they have been in the past. So obviously we'll have to see all of that play out. Thank you, Vic. For Vic Carucci, I'm Lindsey Moppert, Channel 2 Sports.